Greetings and salutations, for it is I, the Grand and Glorious Derry Duke, and today we're going to talk about something that's been on my heart for a very long time, and I just need to get this out here. The English writing system is just terrible, horrible even, and it needs to change. One of the big reasons that we have to change the English spelling system is the fact that it has not changed since the Great Vowel Shift. The Great Vowel Shift was a great vowel shift where all the vowel sounds went from one simple, we say this way, we say that way, and it's all spelt properly, into the mess that we have today, because the sounds changed, but the writing didn't. Now I know what I wrote on the whiteboard looks weird, but I promise you it has relation to what we are doing here. That is International Phonetic Alphabet vowel sounds. Long story short, the International Phonetic Alphabet can precisely show exactly how things are pronounced. And in this case, it shows how the vowels used to be pronounced, and then how they were pronounced after the shift. Now, before you go ahead and start thinking, oh, the A makes the A sound, and the I makes the I sound, know that the International Phonetic Alphabet only uses one graph per phoneme. What's a phoneme? It's a singular sound, like E, Ah, Ooh. Those are all phonemes, and as such only get one letter. Going back to the chart earlier, we can see just exactly how things changed. For the most part, these vowel sounds match up with the Spanish counterparts a, e, o, and u. However, there's this weird open backward C that's like a more open o instead of o, which I know you could barely hear the difference. Don't worry, I can barely either. And then the small 3 looking thing is a less forward a sound, so like eh. Once again, little difference, I know. Linguistics is fun. Going in order, you start with A, which turned into an I sound, turning into E. So you go from bet to beat. Then going next is A, which turned to A, so you went from bot to bait. Then O turned to U, turned into U. So that's where you go from do to do. E turned into I, so instead of getting beat, you get bite. U turned to ow, so instead of coo, you get cow. And instead of O, you get O. So instead of bot, you get boat. And as I'm sure you can all see, the spelling does not reflect the new pronunciations of these whatsoever, quite misfortunately. Another reason why English spelling sucks currently is because of the abundance of French loanwords, which, on paper, they would be fine. We don't have a word for this in English, or this thing is much more specific than the one we have for English. So we'll just take that one and use it instead of the one that we use currently. But the problem behind that is that we took the word, but we did not change the spelling. So it has the French spelling, but the English pronunciation. Now, admittedly, canal is not the worst spelled thing on this earth. Personally, I would not use the letter C in that situation. Champagne is much, much more egregious. CH represents the sha sound in French, but in English it pronounced the cha sound. Then next is the G, because the GN in French makes like a Spanish nye sound, nya, but that's not in English, so it's just an N. And then the trailing E at the end, which is also prevalent in many of our English words, also comes from the French, because the French didn't only loan words, they took over Britain once. And because they took over Britain, it means that they were in the seat of power. Because they were in the seat of power, what they said goes. And what they said goes was really bad spelling rules, which included trailing E's and a whole bunch of different silent letters and whatnot. And it was atrocious and terrible, and I hate it. And it also introduced a new phoneme only found in French loanwords, being ja. And to my chagrin, the only way that I can describe this using English words is the SI in vision or the S in pleasure, because the French brought it in and there's no way we can get rid of it now. Now, the last bit I have to decry before I actually get into how we could possibly fix this is the pairing GH. GH is quite possibly the most confounding thing that happens because English keeps liking to change its pronunciation but not its spelling. GH, and by proxy OUGH, have some of the most inconsistent pronunciation rules. Me reading off of this meme is just enough for it to be stupid. Thought, rough, plow, through, though, cough, hiccup. Yes, hiccup, in the old spelling of hiccup, HICCOUGH. And the list carries on. I'm just too lazy to find the rest, trust me. And it's terrible, horrible even, and it should not be able to continue because we, as educated English speakers and people trying to learn English, ought to be able to spell things easily and sufficiently and how they are pronounced and not due to some arbitrary history behind the word. So now the question is this: how can we fix this? Well, I have an idea on how to fix it. However, there's no proper correct way to fix it, namely because of dialectal differences. The biggest issue is that we here in America, I'm American, pronounce things differently than those across the pond in Britain. Shock and awe. And the Australians say stuff differently. And the New Zealanders do. And then you get different local dialects of like Jamaica and Belize. And then the other English speakers of the larger English speaking diaspora. They don't speak the same that we do either. So the way that I would spell things for general American would not be the same way I would spell things for received pronunciation, which is British, or Australian pronunciation, or New Zealand pronunciation, or anything of that sort. So then, what is my solution? Well, the solution is this: screw them. This alphabet is meant specifically for general American English. If you want to fix your own dialect, that is up to you. The first order of business in fixing English spelling is removing all silent and redundant letters. So no more GHs, no more trailing E's, no more doubled letters, things of that sort are completely gone. One sound per letter, like the International Phonetic Alphabet. The next situation is letters that I'm adding in because, as it turns out, we have more sounds than letters. The main ones that I'm adding in are thorn and ev. Now, I know what you're asking: what's a thorn and what's an ev? Well, English used to have more letters and used to be spelled a bit more phonetically accurate. A remnant from this era are the letters ev and thorn, which represented the th sounds. Yes, sounds. There are two: the voiceless th and the voiced v. And with my newly established rule of there being no double letters to represent one sound, they must have one letter each. However, all the other letters will already be assigned by this point, so I have to throw in these new letters. Next is another option that you probably don't even consider because for the most part it's died out but still does exist in some areas of the United States, and thus I feel an obligation to include it. That being WH. Now, I'm sure you heard some older people say whipped cream, white, things of that sort. Well, that is a voiceless version of the W in English. And funnily enough, there is a letter that used to be used to represent that WH sound, being where. So that gets thrown in as well, mostly due to obligation on my end. Another letter being added is eng, which is a little N with a tail, as you can see right there. It's really cute. I like it. And it's mostly the reason that I'm using it. Anyways, eng represents the NG sound, like sing or finger. Except in finger it'd be NG because ng. Now I know what you're thinking. Duke, where did you put the other letters? Well, that's rather simple, my friend. CH no longer represents cha, it is only C, because C already is covered by two other letters in the alphabet being S and K. So C, cha, simple. Next on the chopping block is SH, which is fairly simple to find because it's already being done in many different languages. SH in many other different languages is represented by the letter X, namely in the Semitic languages and a couple European languages. So we simply take the letter X, get rid of its meaning as KS, and add its new meaning of SH. But then French rears its ugly head once again and curses my name, because there is indeed one letter that has not been reassigned, but yet still exists, for one last sound not assigned to the letter. That sound is ja, and that letter, ironically enough, fairly associated with French, is the letter Q. So I'm stuck here putting the letter Q where the sound for ja should be. And I know what you're thinking: why don't you put J there? Have it play double duty? No, I refuse to let a letter play double duty, because that is hogwash. The next thing I'd want to address is the vowel situation. Now, for the most part, the vowel situation can be summed up into what is generally called short vowels and long vowels, but English doesn't have phonetic length. It just does have length, but that's a topic for another time. So the easiest way that I found to distinguish between the two is, well, adding a macron. So instead of the letter A being used to represent a whole bunch of different letters, the straight letter A just makes the aw sound. And then the A with a macron, technically a circumflex, would be a. Follow a similar pattern with the rest of the vowel sounds, and you'll end up with e and a, I and e, o and o, u and oo. And there is a difference between the two. Food and foot don't use the same vowel. From this is also the introduction of the letter schwa, which, funnily enough, does not actually represent the proper IPA International Phonetic Alphabet sound. It represents the strut vowel in English, which is the vowel you say during the word strut, which for my dialect is as but for most it's more of a back Oh, and because I forgot to mention it, diphthongs. There still do exist some diphthongs that do not get qualified for single letter treatment, which I know this is technically breaking my rules. Diphthong is two vowels put together, acting as one vowel, and they're writing it with two, but in reality it's just a combination of two. So instead of stressing over it and trying to introduce more unique letters, I'm just going to put two letters for the diphthongs. So instead of I being written with the letter I will be written AI because I. And then for ow, it'll be AU because ow. And from that concludes my tirade against English spelling. Okay, toodle pip, bye.